Welcome to the Jill on Money Show. It's Sunday, May 12th, and we are here this weekend talking about how to have hard conversations with your loved ones about their money, their wishes, their estate. We have a special guest. Her name is Pamela Pirone-Benson. She's the Vice President of Advanced Planning at Fidelity Investments, and this interview is a paid sponsorship by Fidelity Investments. Let's get into this interview with Pamela because we are going to talk about the emotional aspects of providing advice to people who are going through this estate planning wealth transfer process. Here's the second part of our interview with Pamela Pirone-Benson. So, given that it is very emotional and having maybe a little minor in psychology wouldn't hurt, I think when we're talking intergenerationally, I want you to put your little shrink/estate planning attorney hat on right now. I hear from a lot of people, probably because we have an audience of some very wealthy, some middle, some not so wealthy, but everyone has the same sort of underneath the hood, a little worry about I'm not sure I want to just give my kids this money. How can I help my kids out both during my life and after death? But I don't want to necessarily enable them. And I think it's so tricky. So I'm wondering how to have those conversations and whether you're brought in as the attorney or the advice giver on that.
Yeah. So a lot of times definitely brought in on those conversations. Sometimes we even have the next generation join our team, our meetings so that we can have that discussion. I'd say I like to pinpoint, I think what the biggest mistake is leading with money. Right. We have a lot of our clients or older clients that if a child or a family member came to them and said, all right, tell me about your estate plan. How much am I getting? How much do you have? That's kind of off-putting for sure. Right. So don't discuss money. Take a step back and talk about what you want to accomplish, where to find things. Do you have a folder? Do you have a safety deposit box? Do you have a vault? Where do these things live? Who do you work with, right? Who's your person at Fidelity that you work with, right? So understanding what you have, where it is, where to find things, and what you want to accomplish is where you should start, not how much money do you have.
I hear from a lot of people, they really want to help their grandchildren. They want to help their adult children, but maybe the easiest way to do that is to make a payment for tuition or put money into a 529 plan. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I think people are a little bit confused. Well, I can put only so much in a 529 plan, but can I pay an unlimited tuition check? So what are the rules around that?
Sure. So you have start with your annual exclusion gift, right? That's $18,000 per person per year, but it's plus tuition and medical directly to an institution. So a gift to a 529 is a gift. It counts towards that $18,000. But if you put $18,000 in a 529 and XYZ University, your grandchild says, hey, here's a bill for 10 grand, you can also pay XYZ University directly the 10,000 on top of the 18,000 that you put in a 529. And 529s are interesting too because you can front load them.
Right.
They permit you to give up to that 5 years worth of gifts, right? Up to 90 grand in year one. You can't then gift the next 4 years. But if you wanted to, gift to that grandchild that was just born a big amount in year one, you can use the 529.
And if you're married, it's twice that, right?
Yes,
so it could be 180 grand. So if I want to help the kids, maybe the parents run into a terrible time. They can't quite make tuition. So if I am my alma mater, I want to pay for a grandchild who's going to Brown, can I write a check directly to Brown for tuition, room and board, and make that check, that 75 grand check out to Brown and not be subject to the $18,000?
You can. Yeah. It's directly to the institution,
Wow.
directly to Brown. You can make that check directly to the institution. Absolutely.
I'm not doing that, Brown, anyone who's listening, because I don't have anyone going. So don't come chase after me. Okay. What about, and it doesn't have to, you don't have to be related to this person.
No,
right?
It could be anybody.
I just pay anyone's tuition I want.
Anybody you like, Jill, you can make it happen.
How old are your kids? Maybe I'll help them out. Okay. What about if you have one kid married with kids, another kid single, kind of the screw up? how can I equalize it a little bit? Like my screw up kid needs more help, but I feel weird about it. So question, screw up kid, can I pay that person's health insurance directly and avoid the gift tax allowance or not?
Well, you got to make sure with your accountant that what you're paying qualifies as medical, but you can pay medical directly to an institution if they gave you a doctor's bill. I have some grandparents tell me, the orthodontists are their best friends, right? Because they pay directly for medical and braces. So you can pay it directly on top of the $18,000. As far as the equalizing, that's an interesting question because there's a couple ways to equalize. You can make a larger gift over the $18,000. You just have to let your accountant know, and you potentially have to file a 709 gift tax return. And what you're doing there is you're going to be using some of your federal exclusion upfront. So you might be able to do that if you said, well, this child didn't have kids. I still want them to have the same amount of money. Or you put some kind of equalization in your will.
We're helping lots of kids out. Now I want to turn the tables. I mean,
nieces,
really.
nephews, whoever
everybody. Yeah. Okay. So now here's a question. I want to flip it. Now we have heard from so many people, Mark can attest to this, about aging parents who will not do their estate planning. If you get pushback from the older generation, because sometimes I think there's a privacy, there's there's an issue around feeling a loss of control. What about bringing in, if I work with Fidelity and I have a financial planner or I have somebody, how helpful is it then to be able to come in with my person, even if it's not my parents' person, like a third party? How can that help?
Well, I think it's incredibly helpful. I think it's human nature that if somebody is constantly telling us something, but somebody else tells us, we might be more apt to listen to that other person. So we have families come in all the time with generations up, generations below, nieces, nephews, whoever they might trust or care about to help us have that discussion with them to get it moving.
I think it can be daunting. I think that when people try to have the conversations and there's pushback, it's one thing for me to be a nudge on this show. We have all these listeners and I'm like, sometimes I hang up with somebody. I'm like, they're not going to do anything, are they, Mark? And Mark's like, not a chance.
I say the same thing.
Right? Like, not a chance. But you do the best you can. And I do think that having that impartial third party who's not trying to sell anything, it's like, this is someone who you can trust. And I think that's really important. And by the way, I know that it's very uncomfortable to have these conversations.
It is.
But not having them really does create a hot mess. It can be just a pain in the neck. And it's also really important that you do know what your parents' wishes are. By the way, you may not like it. I'm sorry to say that there are some parents who might say, well, I cannot choose. Like it would kind of like maybe I think it's hard because the adult generation might not want to treat their kids differently, even though they kind of feel like they should. Like it would be weird for them to say like, well, you have all the money in the world and, your brother doesn't. So I'm going to leave your brother more of the money. And that could be a hard thing for someone to hear. I get it. But at least let your parents, it's their wishes. They have to put it down, right?
Absolutely. If you don't put it down in writing, it's worse. I can tell you in doing this, I meet very few, if any, clients that say, I want to die and leave a mess. I want to die and I want all my heirs to fight. I mean, I've had a few that say, when I die, let them earn it, right? I'll have stuff all over the place. But that's few and far between.
Oh, my God.
Nobody wants to leave fights.
What I said when I wrote my first book is that if you die intestate, it is one of the most selfish acts possible. And it's unnecessary. It's totally unnecessary. Okay, you're a highfalutin, fancy-ass attorney. What about the idea of people going online and drafting documents? Thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs sideways.
So that's a good question. At Fidelity, it's up to you, right? We try to guide you. If you want to see an attorney and you need some names, we have an online Fidelity estate planner tool that you can use. Maybe you want to see an attorney. Listen, drafting your own documents, it's better than dying intestate, right?
I guess.
At least you have something in place. Maybe you just had a kid and you need that guardian because you worry about guardianship. At least get something in place. But you got to be careful. You are now playing attorney, right? You're drafting your own legal documents. If you click the wrong button, you could be saying something contrary to completely what you want. So I would say lean on your professionals. As you said at the beginning, get a team. lean on them, and get as much education and resources as you can. And think twice if you really want to draft your own legal documents.
I know, it's like so important. It's like this is a very important thing, so why not pay up for it? And by the way, so many companies now have legal services that are provided as a corporate benefit, which is amazing. Before we finish up, I can't help but put you on the spot and ask you about where exactly estate law is going in 2 years. What's happening, and what do we need to know about this?
Did you have a crystal ball I don't know about?
I know I have. Do you have your magic 8-ball? I told you to shake it before the last question. Okay, come on.
So here's what I tell clients.
It's so scary. It's crazy.
I know. I say that you have to do your planning based on what the current law is in front of you. And that frustrates a lot of people. They say, you mean I have to do this potentially over again? Fidelity, we say at least every 3 to 5 years, you have to revisit things. Estate planning attorneys are not trying to charge you every year, but if there's a significant change in the law, everything you or I said today could be totally different if there's a change in the law. So what is the law? Where is it going? You die, there's a federal $13.6 million. If the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act expires in 2026 at the beginning, we're going to have a reduction in the exclusion, 5 million indexed for inflation. We don't have exact numbers. They project somewhere between 7 to 7.5 million. If you die over that, it's going to be a 40% tax. So
and
that's
one
a big
thing,
reduction.
And that's federal, gang. So
That's
your
federal.
state might have a little extra bonus for you as well.
Little kicker.
Right? So welcome to New York, where dying is expensive. And some of the states have the cliff where if you go over by $1, they go back to $1 and apply the tax. Is that right?
That's true. So you mentioned New York. A client recently said to me, they get you coming and going. And I thought, that's where that phrase comes from, right?
Oh,
so, yeah. I was like, they do. So New York, for example, you have an exclusion in New York of $6.9 million. If you're under 6.9, no estate tax. If you die with not $1, but the technical answer is 5% over the 6.9, they call it the cliff. You fall off the cliff and they tax from $1. So if you die with 7 million, it's a tax on the whole 7 million. So New York is one of those states with that cliff and that kicker. But you got to plan based on what the law is now. And even forgetting the taxes, everybody needs documents no matter what your estate tax, whatever your exclusion is.
Every single person, big dollars, small dollars, everybody has something to gain by getting their estate planning acts together. You have to take a step forward. You have to be able to do it. Work with somebody who is an estate planning attorney. I'm going to just say this, I am not into the person who did the closing of my house is the person who's drafting my documents. This is a very specific corner of the legal profession. So
100%, just like medical, right? Do you see the cardiologist for your heart? Go see the estate planning for your estate plan. Absolutely.
Okay, for more information on this topic, you can visit fidelity.com/wealth. As a reminder, this interview is an advertisement brought to you by Fidelity Investments. The views expressed are as of the date indicated and may change based on market or other conditions. Unless otherwise noted, the opinions provided are those of the speaker or author as applicable and not necessarily those of Fidelity Investments. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC, member NYSE SIPC. And now for the actual close of the show. We like to remind you to please do something nice for someone else today. Change your work, change your wealth, change your life. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.